We've come out of that horrible wind, gotten somewhere warm in the blockhouse. I'm going to talk you through how I tie my zigs up. Now, first up, we need a hook link material. I always go for the Zig. So the reason I use Zig Flow as my hook link and not just a standard mono mainline is very important. So Zig Flow is very, very low diameter. It's clear, so it goes almost invisible in water. Despite the fact that it is low diameter, it's got great abrasion resistance. And yeah, so it means that even if you're fishing up against snags, you've got every chance of landing those fish if they do start to grate up against there. The floating element is very important as well. It means that you're not going to weigh that zig down, and it's going to act as naturally as possible up in those upper layers. And for me, this is the perfect floating hook link. I use it for my floater fishing as well. And I wouldn't use anything other than Zig Float for my Zig presentations. So we need to select a desired length. As I said, I fish from anywhere between, to this session, 10 and 18 foot, but I'm not going to tie an 18-foot one. I'm going to tie just a 6-foot one just to demonstrate it, make it a little bit simpler. I know a lot of people are very anal about getting that length dead on. Alfie Willingale, I'm looking at you. However, I'm not so bothered. As long as I'm within sort of half a foot, I'm quite happy. So when I measure it, I know that my wingspan's about 6 foot. So I do them in 6 foot increments. So for me, there we go, that's 6 foot. So I'll cut it there. And this is the hook link section. So we've got 6 foot there of Zig Flow. Next step is to slide on one of the Zig screws. As I said, I like to go for a coloured one as the actual Zig screw, and then go for black as the Zig foam. I've got a yellow one here. So very simply, just slide this on. Like so. The good thing about these Zig screws is not only that you can easily attach your hook bait, but also it acts as sort of like a kicker, so that you're not going to close the gape of the hook, because this is quite a stiff material. The Zig Flow is quite stiff, so if you don't have this, it can close that gape and you don't get that aggressive hook presentation that you want. Next up is the hook pattern I use. I always go for floater claws. For me, the aggression of the actual hook pattern and the fact that it's quite a thin diameter means it is perfect for zig fishing. However, unlike what a lot of people like to do and go for size 12s or 10s, I like a big one. Like I said earlier, zigs aren't renowned for their hook in and hook to land ratio. And for me, that's not down to the actual rig so much, it's more down to the fact that people like to use really dainty like setups, and so therefore I go for a size 7. Especially in this lake, you've got to bully the fish to start with to pull them away from those snags, and if I've got a size 12, I'm not going to be able to put as much pressure on that fish as I'd like, so that's why I like to go for a size 7, quite a big hook size for zig fishing traditionally, but for me it works perfectly. So I attach this with a very simple 7-turn blood knot. Any knot that you use to attach hook to line will do absolutely fine. This is just what I favour. The most important thing is to make sure that you moisten the knot before closing it, because it's so low diameter Zig Flow. You can get line burn if you don't do this, so make sure you're wetting that knot before you pull it tight. There we go. I just trim off the tag end. Again, I will moisten the hook shank just to help slide on that Zig screw a little bit better. Because it is quite a bigger hook pattern than normal, it can take a little bit of pushing to get it on, as opposed to what it would with a size 10 or a 12. But then we have it on like so. Then I'll get my actual hook bait, which, as I said yesterday, is 7mm Zig foam. I use 7mm because, as I said, for me, you're trying to get that reaction out of a fish. You're trying to get that lure-like aggressive take from them, and the bigger for me, the better. So I'll cut off quite a good amount. I know a lot of people, like I said, like to use the thin and go for really small, but you're trying to get that reaction out of the carp, and I think, therefore, that a nice big bit is important. So something like that is ideal. It's a very simple case then of just screwing this on. These Zig screws are excellent because you can change your hook bait colour very easily. Maybe you find out that red or yellow or a different colour like that is doing well. You can quickly change over, and also, let's say you have a fish at some point and it burrs the hook over. You don't have to tie a whole new Zig hook link section up to tie the hair on again. You can just simply pull the Zig screw back, snip off a tiny little bit, tie the hook on again, and you're good to go. So most people would be fishing their zigs like that. However, like I said, I love to top mine with maggots. I think that is the biggest edge you can get. So you've got a nice ball of maggots on the top. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna attach the maggots. So I use a boilie needle for this. You can use any maggot needle. We do a maggot needle as well at Nash, which is a white handle, I believe. But I do just use a standard boilie needle, and I'll take a bunch of maggots. Anywhere between sort of 7 to 10, I think, is a good number. Any more than that, and you're starting to risk weighing the zig down a little bit. Any less than that, I just don't think you get the movement you want. So I think 10 is an ideal number to aim for. But yeah, whatever works best for you. Try it yourself, see which one you get the most reaction from the carp, and then go for that as your standard sort of approach. So all I'm doing is I'm piercing them at the top through the 2 little black eyes to avoid bursting them. Making like a nice little maggoty kebab on the bait needle. There we go. So I've got about 8 on there at the moment, wiggling away. And then what I do is I actually use Zig Flow again as, instead of using bait floss, I use Zig Flow. Take a small bit of Zig Flow. You don't need to take 6 foot this time, just a small little bit. A few inches, 6, 7 inches like that, sweet. And then I'll just double it over at one end and push all the maggots on, like so. Got the maggots on there. Then I will, this bit is important here. First, I'll secure them in place. This avoids the maggots wiggling around and untying the knot once it's out in the water. So I'll do like a 3-turn granny knot, I think this is. Just a very simple knot. Do 2 of them just to secure it in place. I now know that those maggots aren't going to go anywhere. They're not going to untie that knot whilst it's out in the water and leave me maggotless. They're secured in place, and now they're ready to actually attach to the Zig foam. I attach them to the Zig foam, so I pierce through the top of the Zig foam, all the way through, like so. Same thing again. I'll sort of double over, so I've got a little loop, and pull it through. And then it's exactly the same process as before with 2 3-turn granny knots to secure it in place. One. Trim the tag ends of this. And there we go. That is the business end of my Zig, ready to be cast out, ready to entice any passing carp into sucking that in and hopefully getting a bite. Now it's a very simple case of putting on the XL anti-tangle sleeve. Again, as I said yesterday, make sure you use tungsten just to get that hinge mechanism. It definitely increases hook holds. It allows the Zig to be taken further back by the carp, especially if they're not sucking the hook bait in. They're not going right up to the hook bait when they're sucking it from a little bit of a distance. This is important to have. And there we have it. So that is 6 foot long, and it's a case of attaching that to your lead clip presentation with a small bit of rig tubing just up from the lead to create that stiff boom to reduce tangles. And yeah, it is ready to be cast out almost anywhere. The best thing about Zigs is you can cast it wherever you see a show. You don't have to find an amazing clear spot. You can fish it in amongst weed, providing the Zig is longer than the actual weed. And for me, they are still, despite everyone going on about how good they are, still a massively underused presentation that will definitely, especially at this time of year, catch you more fish.